just for Biggie to think that advanced, because New York wasn't up on Bone Thugs like that.
You think this is a flop? Now, I'm gonna show you what I really do right now.
20 plus years later, and our fans will absolutely have a fit if we don't perform that song.
26 years ago, we tragically lost one of the greatest music artists that ever lived. In the sphere of hip-hop, Christopher Wallace, aka the Notorious B.I.G, is revered as one of the greatest of all time writer, rapper, and songwriters. A GOAT. His final body of work was the impeccable double album, Life After Death, a succession of infectious hit records and impossibly poignant rhymes that soared from certified diamond to iconic. 2022 marked the year that Life After Death turned 25, as well as the year that our dear friend Big Poppa would have been 50 years old. I'm Angie Martinez, the voice of New York, and I spent 5 consecutive nights speaking with those who were closest to Biggie during the final 18 months of his life, in and out of the studio. The result is an 8-episode visual podcast fit for a king. Welcome to season 1 of Iconic Records. When rap aficionados pinpoint the performance that closed the case on who's the best MC, it's usually Big's verse on Notorious Thugs. Never did anyone fathom a New York rapper borrowing the staccato and lullaby flow of Cleveland rap group Bone Thugs and Harmony, then taking it to another level. On episode 6, Fat Joe tells that it was he who brokered the historic Bone and Biggie collab. Bone Thugs manager Steve Lobel joins us to confirm. Then Little C's and Layzie Bone revisit the epic studio session in California, late 1996. Let's just start with Life After Death.
Life After Death, wow.
Do you remember the first time you heard it?
Life After Death was just like, I guess our version of like Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre, how, you know, their albums used to sound so big and so well put together. Big was gonna make a project that sounded like the quality of Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. I promise you, that's, he had a CD of them up on the wall and just was staring at them the whole time he was making that album. Like, I'm gonna be the New York version of that quality over quantity. And so they gave us a double album. If they would have kept one side, it would have been 3 and classics. You know what I'm saying? It would have been 3 classics instead of 2 classics. So it's like, Life After Death was like the first polished, song after song was epic. It sounded big, like huge. You know, hip hop when Big first started and I first started, it was just raw, hard, underground vocals. You could hear the boom punches, bap. Boom bap. You know what I'm saying? That when he put that together was more like, oh, because we used to listen to Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and be like dumbfounded, like how they had the skits, how they had the this, how they had the that. So that was New York's version of that.
Yeah. And then also when we would hear big productions like that, the bars weren't at the same level of the bars that obviously Biggie was giving us.
Biggie never kicked a whack rhyme. That's the difference between him and pretty much every rapper ever.
Can you say that about any other rapper?
No. Biggie, every feature, whether it was on 112, it was on Super Cat, it was everybody was waiting to hear and every time it was just amazing, 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 and he never kicked a whack rhyme.
Did you ever get to see him, were you ever in the studio with him? Did you ever get to witness that?
Angie, you gotta stop these trick questions. You know, I was in the studio with Biggie all the time. And I was there when he made Hypnotize. And I tell a story that from 12 to 1, this is like what you just said at the funeral, it was 10 Spanish girls. From 1 to 2, 10 black girls. From 2 to 3, 10 Asian girls. From 3 to 4, 10 Italian girls. I've never seen nothing like this in my life. I'm sitting in the studio, I said, this is what it's like to be the B.I.G.
The ladies, he definitely loved the ladies, and the ladies definitely loved him.
The ladies love B.I.G.
Yeah.
And I tell a story because the phone rang and he picks up and he's like, and it's Faith, his wife. And she called up, she was like, hey, Big. He was like, what's up, baby, whatever, trying to sweet talk her. And she was like, you up there with all them dirty, nasty and he's like, nah. And he was like, why they can't be model? I was like, oh my God, I never seen nor heard no like that in my life. But I was there, you know, I don't care where I'm at.
Yeah.
I could be in Spain, Dubai, wherever. When Hypnotize come on, I automatically know, like, yo, I was there. I'll be like, yo, oh, I was there. While that music was going boom, 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 bound. You know, I was hearing that for like 7, 8 hours. You know, when you're in the studio.
Yeah, what are you thinking when you're sitting in the studio? And
you're thinking of the song. Like you there and you're going over the lyrics.
Are you thinking this is gonna be a monster?
This is a hit. Like with any one of my hits, I left the studio. That's what I do now when we listen to music in the backyard. And it's like, no romance without finance. Right? I be like, and then you gotta pay the rent. Need for nothing. I'm like, yo, what was that girl thinking when she walked out that studio that day she made that record? Like, cause you know, when you make a hit, Hypnotize was gone. Hypnotize. And then the video.
Were you there when he did the vocals? No.
No, I was there when he was writing.
You
know what I'm saying? And getting the vibe and all that. I wasn't there when he did the vocals, but I was there. And
the video.
The video was like, we never seen no like that. The Benz going backwards, the mermaid, the yacht, the shirts. You gotta understand, fat guys couldn't even get in. We couldn't even get a t-shirt back in them days. We gotta go to Dr. J's, big and tall, Busters, you know, and that he was wearing some old Hermes, Versace. And we was just looking like, yo, this is crazy. Like, this guy flies up and Puff had the matching shirt. Nah, it was crazy. Hypnotize, the video.
I remember that video. My favorite thing, it's the first time he just was smiling so much in that video that it was, and it was different for him because all his videos was hard, and watching him smile was like it was just, I don't know.
I can tell you why.
Okay.
We came from nothing, you know what I'm saying? And let alone the dream comes and it's coming fast, but he knew he was shooting a $2 million video, some wild that, you know, Fat Joe and Buckshot Shorty was shooting $10,000 videos. He made it, only guys like Dr. Dre, Snoop, Bone Thugs, like certain guys had $1 million, Busta Rhymes with the doom.
Yeah.
Right? So he knew while he was shooting that, like, yo, this is gonna be crazy. We got mermaids, we got yachts, helicopters coming. Like, it was like, he knew, he was like, yo, this is it.
Like he was enjoying the moment.
Hell yeah, he was like, yo, because that was gonna take him to another level.
The thing about him too is even in his prime, I feel like he always touched the people. Like you would see him on TV and doing this, but then you'd be like at a club in New York and he would show up at the club. Like, I feel like people had such they felt like they could touch him in a way.
And that's great. That's Fat Joe does that to this day. But I think at one point he became too accessible. Where he got locked up for beating the guy with the bat, with this, and this. I just think if we just go too much to the club, too much outside, it's bound to happen.
When we look at Fat Joe, what part of him is like influenced?
Oh, he influenced me incredibly. There's too many sessions I got ready for that I would just listen to 30, 40 Biggie records in a row. He influenced Big Pun. Big Pun was just the Latino version of Biggie. You know what I'm saying? That's how, when I discovered him, that's what I thought of from the first second. Of course, Pun had his own rhyme schemes and was da-da-da-da-da-da, but at the end of the day, we were gonna make him the Puerto Rican Biggie, you know, sex symbol for ladies, Boricua Morena. That all came from Biggie. But I also believe if we're gonna give it to Biggie, we gotta include, rest in peace, Heavy D. Because Heavy D's the guy who inspired all the big boys. You know what I'm saying? So Heavy D, you know, every time I hear him, I get put a smile on my face because he like to be fly. I mean, Heavy D, when it comes to his birthday and you're on Instagram and you're looking for pictures, you don't really gotta search hard. He's just like fresh in every pic. Like one with Nia Long, one with the flyest sweatsuit you ever seen in your life, one with the, you know, Heavy D was very inspirational. And then Biggie, you know what I'm saying? He took it another level. You got the Rosses, you got the Khaleds, everybody been inspired by man.
What could you say about the evolution of, you know, Ashy to Classy?
Fast, really quick.
Smooth though, right? Because sometimes
I'll
people
tell
try
you,
to make that evolution, that transition.
Nobody had that transition before him. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Nobody ever did what he did.
Nobody went from Ashy to Classy.
Nobody went from ashy to classy.
You're absolutely
Nobody
right.
ever did that. That's a fact. Right. Yes.
What?
What do you want me to do? Let me ask you a question, right? You guys are all hip-hop historians. Fat Joe tells some stories you don't believe, but then you realize it's the truth, because somebody would say it's a lie.
No, I think we
No,
believe
it's
you.
not.
You're
Yeah,
the
but
only one
it,
thinks
like,
that people
no,
don't
it's
believe you.
fantasy. It sounds like a fantasy. I'm sorry, but it really happened. What you guys want me to do? Like what you want? Yeah, I lived a good life, right? I was f***ing everywhere. Now I'm gonna tell you a fact.
Okay.
So I was signed to Relativity Records. It was me, the Beatnuts, Common, M.O.P., Chi-Ali, and Bone Thugs and Harmony. And so I clicked up with Bone Thugs and Harmony right away. Because I would go to Cleveland, hang out with them. I would ride with them on their tour. These guys sold 30 million records, so they were selling out stadiums. The stadiums looked like it was gonna collapse. The stadiums that looked like it's bending. And Biggie hit me up and was like, yo, bro, I'm trying to get in touch with your guys. They don't want to do it. They're ignoring me. They didn't want to do a song with Biggie. And just for Biggie to think that advanced, because New York wasn't up on Bone Thugs like that. He knew that they was gigantic, and he was like, yo, I need to do a song with them. And I was like, all right, Big. He was like, nah, I know you the plug. You could do it. So I was like, all right, Big, I got you. So then I called them, and they had already been cool with Tupac. And so they was like, yo, Joe, we can't do it. We cool with Tupac. And I'm like, yo, bro, this is B.I.G. Like, you know what it is to do a song with B.I.G. So I convinced them. And shout out Steve Lobel and Bone Thugs and Harmony showed up to the studio and they did the record Bone and Biggie, Biggie, Bone and Biggie, Biggie. And and so every time I see that picture, I laugh. But you know, that's why we got that. And
So wait, you can't just say, I convinced them. Like, how long did it take? What did you have to say?
Bone Thugs, y'all know I love y'all. You know, I made them go do the song with B.I.G. I don't know how to explain it to you in every other language. They've confirmed, like, you know, yo, you got to go do it. This is my brother.
No, it's not an option
and they're
here?
the happiest people in the world to confirm this because they still touring off that record.
Yeah.
That record's one of the biggest treasures in hip hop.
Yeah.
And so they happy they listened to Fat Joe when they did that.
Yeah.
And then we got a picture when they when Biggie won the award. It's the whole Bone Thugs and me. I'm wearing the beige jacket. It's the Bone Thugs, Biggie, Puffy, Little Kim. I'm up in that. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, so what happens when you call Big? Do you call him and be like, I got it. I got it done?
He told me, get it done. he the way he talked to me was like, he's not taking no for it. Yo, Joe, this on you. Right, this on you. You go find a way to get them guys. This is on you. So I got to come back like, yo, it's B.I.G. Like, it's the king of New York. Y'all bugging out. Like, you can't say no to B.I. You know what I'm saying? So it was pretty much like that. You know what I mean?
I'm sure you were happy to deliver that news back. Yeah.
I never forget, man. I never forget. It was great for hip hop. That's crazy. And then when Big passed away, when he got killed, I got the phone call from Steve Lobel. He was the one who called me. He was like, yo, Biggie died. I was like, no way. I was here in the Bronx. And so I got the phone call from Steve Lobel. That's the first person to tell me that. That was like crazy, you know?
Yeah. So we kind of owe you for that. We kind of owe you for...
For Bone and Biggie, for sure.
Yeah, we kind of owe you for that. That's a great story.
I'll tell you how you summarize this whole, your Jerry Springer moment,
Please.
Process and everything. You know, whether we admit it or not, you know, us as New Yorkers, we real tough, we really thick-skinned. But when they took Big, they like snatched the heart out the apple. You know what I'm saying? And he's like the logo. He's the DNA. He's everything in New York City, not just Brooklyn. Everybody in New York City loves Biggie on another level. And so that's why it's so personal to us. Whenever somebody talk about him, we be like, what? Like, you know how you ready to hear something? Like, you know, you've been with me and you hear how I talk about B.I.G. I'm like, what? Huh? And that's everybody, because we feel like, yo, Biggie is us. Like, you know what I'm saying? He's the actual logo of New York City hip hop. And so that's how it's always gonna give us a bitter taste. It's always we're never gonna get over it.
But even now, do you listen to Life After Death still? Will you still listen
all the time?
Yeah. Do you have like a song?
Every time I have a good time, every time I have fun, if I'm on a yacht, if I'm celebrating life, anytime I want to feel good, I put on Biggie Smalls. I hear a Biggie Smalls song every single day of my life. Do you know how crazy that is? I hear Michael Jackson every single day of my life. That's the craziest. You could be in a restaurant, you could be in an elevator, you could be here, you could be there. You're gonna hear Biggie. It's so crazy.
That's crazy.
It's nuts.
Yeah, it's great.
It's 25 years later.
Hip-hop is incredibly grateful that Fat Joe shared a label with Bone Thugs and Harmony. But the collaboration couldn't have happened without the Bone Thugs plug. Fat Joe's buddy, Mr. Steve Lobel.
Mr. Lobel. Steve Lobel, of course.
How you doing, Ange?
I'm good. It's good to see your face. You've been with Bone Thugs for how long? Since the beginning?
I was introduced Bone in 1993 from the late, great Eazy-E, rest in peace, from NWA. And I worked at Relativity Sony, where Ruthless Records was distributed. So Eazy had them signed. And then Eazy brought them to New York City for the first time. We took them to the tunnel. And then Eazy had walked back to the hotel, and Eazy got a cold. And I never saw him again. He passed away.
Wow.
And the only ones they really knew was me. So I've been with them for over 25 years.
Well, first of all, let me just ask you about your relationship with Big. Do you remember seeing him for the first time or meeting him for the first time? What was your first?
Yeah, the first time I saw him was in Philadelphia at the Armory. You know, I come in the game to the late, great Jam Master Jay, rest in peace, and Run DMC. So we were out there for the show. It was Russell Simmons had this show. It was called The Show. It was like a soundtrack. And I saw Big perform at the Armory out there in Philly. Got to meet him. And then fast forward, you know, I started working with Fat Joe. And Fat Joe would always run into Big, and I'd be with Fat Joe. So I met Big a few times. We were shooting a Mo Thugs video. It's Bone Thugs and Harmony's label with their artist, and we were out in California, and I had moved out to California once E passed away, working with Bone, and I was at this hotel, and I don't know how Joe found me, but Fat Joe found me and called me and said, hey, Puff's gonna call you. And then Puff called me and said, Big wants to do a song with Bone, and we're at the Record Plant Studios. Can we get them? And at that time, Bone was big, man. You know, they had dropped East 1999, E99, and they had Crossroads out, and they were big, and they were wild. I called them all. The funny thing is Wishbone had a relationship with Big from when they met them in New York, you know, back then, and Wish wasn't in L.A. at the time. At the time was Crazy, Busy, and Layzie, and Fleshbone was there as well. So I called them all, tracked them down, which was not easy, and they all pulled up one at a time, and Layzie showed up with about 30 people. Busy showed up by himself. Crazy showed up about 15 people. Flesh showed up about 10 people. So we were in there deep. And Puff had the Hennessy and the champagne going, and Layzie brought weed, and Little C's was there. Stevie J cooked up the beat. We had the Mo Thug Soldiers in there. D-Rock was there. And shout out Arnold Turner, the legendary photographer. He was in there taking pictures. Brian Perry was filming with a film crew, and that film, that video content has never showed up. Someone was in there filming with big cameras back then, and that never showed up. And I just know that, Big passed out a few times. He was sleeping, and, Busy went in there and just did his thing in like 20 minutes. Crazy did his thing. Layzie was out in the limo sleep, and I woke him up. And then he came in the studio and they laid their verses, and that song was just amazing. And then Big was like, I'm gonna take this home to New York and practice.
I remember, I think it was D-Rock was telling a story about how Layzie was, I guess he had been drinking, he maybe drank too much, went outside in the car and passed out, and they thought maybe it was a rap, like he wasn't gonna get on the song.
Yeah, no, Lay's known for that though, but when you wake him up, I would take washcloths, cold water washcloths, and wake him up, shake him, and get him up, and he jumped right on the mic and delivers at all times. So, remember, Bone is the only group to ever do a song with Eazy-E, Tupac Shakur, Biggie Smalls, Big Pun, and mentored by Jam Master Jay. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Is it true that Layzie did the song in one take? He did his verse?
Yeah, he did it in one take. That's what he usually does. Layzie, he does things in one take. Crazy, it takes a couple times, but he murders it. Mm-hmm. And Busy, he's all over the place, but he does his thing too. And again, I was just blown away how quick that song was. The song was probably done quicker than the session because we were there for a while. And like I told you, there was cases of Hennessy and cases of champagne and weed and stuff like that. And, at that time, Bone used to drink Hennessy, and they used to get turned up, and it would knock them out as well. So, again, they would always wake up. It's not the first time Layzie drank a little Hennessy, went to sleep, woke up, and killed verses. Many verses he's done. I've been in the studio with him for a long time.
But what did it mean for them to have Big want to jump on a song with them and deliver it in their lane?
It's funny you say that, right? Because I'm from Queens, New York, and I worked with so many legacy and legendary artists from New York. And when I started working with Bone, they were dropping albums and they were doing Diamond. They was multi-platinum artists and had big hit singles, but with all due respect, New York didn't really show them love. The radio didn't show them love, and no one really showed them love. But whenever we do come to New York, they would show them love, like you saw Michael Jackson or Guns N' Roses. So when Crossroads came, a lot of people in New York started loving them. Remember, these are global artists that were selling millions and millions of records, and your brother Fat Joe will tell you because he was really close with them. But when Big did the song, and again, we didn't hear the verse. Big passed away, and then the song came out, and I was like, whoa. But he took his time to master their flow, and when it came out, New York had a whole different perspective on Bone Thugs and Harmony, and it really helped them out in New York more. And I'm glad I just got that call, picked up the phone, and put that together because that goes down in history, and it's iconic.
Mm-hmm. There was some talk about the fact that they had this relationship with Pac, and so then when Big initially asked for them to be on the song, that there was some resistance. Was that true for anybody in the group?
Bone never got caught up in no beef with that type of East Coast, West Coast stuff. They were cool with everybody. People would throw their names and stuff like they had beef, but it wasn't no real beef. But when they did that song with Pac, that song was done with Busy Bone. And then Bone got on that song, and that song goes down in history. And then, when Joe called me and then Puff called me about Biggie, there wasn't no resistance. Bone was like, man, hell yeah. And I'm just blessed to be part of history by connecting the dots and doing the business for them. And man, and then when that song came out, I was like, damn. And they still perform that song till this day. And if they don't, people get upset.
Layzie Bone also remembers the Notorious Thugs session very clearly. Today, he sees the song as a gift left by Big. One that expanded the reach of an already multi-platinum group, giving them a song that 25 years later is on demand at every Bone Thugs and Harmony live performance.
Layzie Bone, I ain't seen you in, it's been a minute, my friend.
Yeah, it been over a
That's
decade.
That's crazy. Thank you so much for doing this today, man. We had to include you. This, of all the people we've been talking about, this Life After Death album, obviously, with a lot of people, and just this song this Notorious Thugs song it's such a thing for people. People resonate with it so much. It's so historic and legendary. So I appreciate you taking the time today to talk about this and take us down memory lane a little bit.
Most definitely.
So tell me about the first time you met Big. Do you remember?
The very first time I met Biggie Smalls, actually, it's a crazy story for real. It was November, well, no, not November. It was Russell Simmons' Christmas party back in like 1995. Flesh and Bone had just signed with Def Jam, and Russ invited us to his party. So we went out there, no security, all that. Long story short, it was a big fight broke out between Bone Thugs and Harmony and Wu-Tang Clan, and yeah, we tore the club up, and shout out to Wu-Tang Clan. It's all
Yeah, I was gonna
now.
say, what was that fight over?
It was over somebody was pushing and shoving in the club, and you know what? I don't know what that fight was over. It was stupid. But at the same time, though, it was live. You know, it was the 90s, and we was young, wild. We was getting it in. And as the fight broke out, Biggie Smalls was coming into the club. You know what I mean? And that was the very first time we had actually got a chance to meet Big. It was so brief, but him and Chris Lighty, rest in peace, actually got us up out of there before it got way, way too crazy. So my first encounter was Big. He was like, yo, these bones, yo, we got to get them up out of here, yo. And yeah, he protected us.
How did he get you out of there?
I mean, he was bagging the crowd up. You know what I mean? It was like 12 of us, all rappers. We all about 150 pounds, and it was us, and it was New York. And New York saw that, you know, they was riding with Wu-Tang Clan. So what had happened was Biggie Smalls was just so happened to be walking up, and he loved our music. I had never got a chance to personally meet him, but he was like, you know, protecting hip hop at the time. So he bagged up the crowd. He was the biggest in the crowd.
Wow. Were there words exchanged with you and him, or you didn't have time because it was too crazy that night?
Well, actually, him and Wishbone, you know, they locked up. You know, like they was giving love and all that, and they had a few words, but I'm telling you, it was so brief. Like we was going out, and he was coming in, and he saw the mayhem, and basically, you know, he just bagged the crowd up, and Chris Lighty came around the corner, skirt, Big, get him in the car, and boom, they pushed us in the SUV, and we got out of there, and I'm here to tell that story today.
Wow. And then, did you ever have a chance to talk to him about that moment?
Actually, that was the first thing we talked about when we did the Notorious Thugs song. I hadn't seen him since then, and we end up out here in California. We end up doing the Notorious Thugs song, so we talked about it, laughed, joked. That day right there was so off the hook, you know what I mean? It was like we was in the studio like 50 deep. Everybody from Bad Boy, everybody from Mo Thug and Ruthless. Man, that was a hell of a time. But yeah, we got to talk about it. We smoked weed and laughed about it and all that, and was contemplating on making one of the dopest songs we possibly could make in the world.
It just was such a big moment. That this collaboration was not a small thing. You know, it was a big thing. Maybe you could talk about that time, and what you guys were accomplishing in that moment.
At that time, I believe it was 1996, almost 1997 or something like that. So where we were in our career, we had just came off the single of The Crossroads, which was #1 on the charts. You know, we had just released East 1999 Eternal, our second album. We was probably the biggest rap group in the world at that time. And Yeah, we was hot, man. It was on fire. You know, it was in the middle of a hailstorm of the East Coast, West Coast beef that was blowing up in the magazines. You know what I'm saying? So, and it was odd because it was like we had just did a song with Pac. You know what I mean? And then to be able to do a song with Biggie, people thought, you know, especially from the Midwest, they felt like, you know, we was bringing it all together, like we was bringing the peace to back, like because we was able to maneuver through both camps and stay neutral, basically, you know what I'm saying, and just really stick to the music. So at that time, we was hot, hotter than fish grease. We was balling out of control. East 1999 was diamond.
Wow.
You know, it was like that was 10 times platinum already almost, like eight times platinum. So when Steve Lobel put it on the table, was like, yo, Puff wants y'all to do a song with Big. And it was on and cracking because we was living on the West Coast. So, you know, and Big was out there on the West Coast. And at that time it was like Pac had just got murdered. And for him to be out there was like, and we was moving around like real free-hearted and everything. It was a weird time in hip hop, put it like that.
Yeah.
It was real.
I had heard that you guys, you weren't sure if you wanted to do the record. Maybe you could say if this is true or not, but that you guys weren't sure about if you wanted to do the record because of your relationship with Pac and how hostile everything was at that time. Is that true?
I mean, our relationship with Pac was the same as it was with Biggie. We was fans of both of those artists. He was fresh off Ready to Die, you know what I'm saying? So Juicy and all that was bumping on the radio. Like, it was an honor for us. We was trying to build our legacy. So whatever they had going on, people mistook us for being West Coast artists, but we from Cleveland, Ohio, you know what I mean? So we Midwest, we was always neutral. It was always about the music for us.
How did you talk about the collaboration a bit? Because two different sounds, two different types of artists, but somehow it just came together and seemed to make so much sense. Tell me how that happened then.
You know, like I said, we met up in California. Now what happened, it was so much of a party in this studio that we was in, which was a real tight studio. It wasn't a real big studio. You had Lil C's was there, Stevie J, Puffy was there. Man, it was so many of us in that building. All the Mo Thug artists was in the building. And it was like, it was an all-day thing of us just really kicking it in the studio. Stevie J made the beat on the spot. So we was smoking, drinking, you know, having a good time. And I tell you, so it was my responsibility to bring that weed that time, you know what I'm saying? And I had to get at Biggie, like, 'cause I came in and set a couple ounces on the panel, you know. Everybody get to rolling up. Big put my weed in his pocket. I'm like, hey man, what the hell is you doing, man? He like, oh, I thought this was for me. I was like, it is, man. So it was a real fun time. Like, we kicked it like we was brothers, like forever, ever. And I remember Crazy Bone doing his verse, Busy Bone doing his verse. I fell asleep in the limousine because we was drinking Hennessy all day.
I heard that story.
So I woke right up out of my sleep. Steve Lobel come shake me up in the limousine, and he like, your turn, man. They thought I was out for the count, but I went and hit that thing one take. Boom. So we did our parts. We did the chorus line, and the song was great. But Biggie was like, I'm gonna take this home. So he didn't do his part that night. We all did our part, you know, so Biggie took it home. So the style meshing together, he intentionally went home, was like, I'm finna mastermind they flow. And that's what he told us before we left. But we didn't have the pleasure to even hear what he had done until after he passed.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So we was going through things in the industry with different artists about whose style was this and all these different things. So once after Biggie passed and the album came out and we heard his flow, it was like now the world knew that he paid homage to that flow, and it was a different respect for Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Wow.
That changed a lot when he flipped that armed and dangerous. Ain't too many can bang with us. Straight up, we know angel dust. Oh man, when he flipped that like that, it was like now when we went to New York, cause you know New York was hard, man. It was hard. If you wasn't from there, a lot of times they just look at you like you be up there rocking your heart out. They be like, "What is these doing?" But after Biggie did that. Man, we went and did a show at BB King's up there in New York, and whew, I mean, they came out like never before.
Wow.
So,
did you think at any point when he passed that, did you know the song was done, or did you think maybe the song would have just disappeared?
I mean, after he passed, after Big passed, I really didn't even think about it. I forgot about the song because it was so devastating that he passed. Like the song wasn't, we didn't even think about that. Like, so yeah, no, I totally forgot about the whole song scenario. Well, I knew we had the song with him, but at the same time, we didn't know if he did it. We didn't know what happened with the whole situation because it was traumatizing. That traumatized us. We was just with him and like the streets was so hot. It was like, you know, everybody was on high alert. You know what I'm saying? So the music was a secondary thought. It was about some real street at that time.
Yeah. You guys were, you know, so wildly successful, millions and millions of albums. I mean, like that Crossroads was not just the #1 song. It was like a phenomenon. Like you guys were some of the biggest artists in the world at that time. And even still, with that success, that you credit Biggie for cementing your flow for a lot of people. That's a big deal.
It's definitely a big deal, you know what I mean? And to this day, our fans got a problem with us if we don't perform Notorious Thugs. You know what I mean? Like, we just did a show in Ventura, California yesterday. I could show you the footages when Biggie, when his verse come on and the crowd sing it with us, it's like every night it's a brand new song. And it's 20 plus years later, and our fans will absolutely have a fit if we don't perform that song. It's probably one of the most high energetic songs that we got, you know, because a lot of our music is, you know, got harmonies and the beat is maybe slower, but that one right there get the stadium jumping to this day.
Give me your reaction, or where were you, or what did you think when you first heard it, when you first heard Big's verse?
I remember exactly where I was. I had a house up in Chatsworth, California, big living up there, you know what I mean? And I got the CD from my cousin, so I always had the song with just our verses on there. And then when we heard it, I was sitting in the back of my excursion, and the music was bumped up, and we was in my driveway. And man, when I tell you, everybody in the neighborhood came out the house, and we had a party right there in the neighborhood. I'm talking about we had Old English, 800. That's how 1990s it was. You know what I'm saying? And man, sipping on Wild Irish Rose and Hennessy. So we had the whole street jumping. It was like we had a new album out.
Wow.
Only one photo exists of that legendary studio session where Bone and Biggie combined brilliance to lay the foundation for Notorious Thugs. It was a night of weed ounces, Hennessy cases, and drunk one-take verses. Little C's remembers it like it was yesterday.
We always talk about, you know, Big passing and the impact on music and things like that. I was talking to Layzie Bone earlier, and he was just talking about the trauma
Yeah.
the trauma of that time for everybody. You know, like, I mean, I can't even imagine for you and the family and the squad, but, you know, they had just done the song, that Bone Thugs song. You were there?
Yeah, hell
that
yeah.
day, yeah.
Oh yeah, that was like a dope session, man. That shit was fun as whole Mo Thugs, like everybody that was signed to them, and you know, Big embraced that and loved it. All of them did their verses, and Big ain't do his verse that day. He was just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna sit on that." Like I just wanted to get the vibe, and you know, all of them, they was like, you know, cool, like really down to earth, like really just going Big on some real like chill hood. Cause Big was like, "Yeah, I just want to make sure I master it." And one day we was in Daddy's house where Big wanted to do the verse. We got back home and Big was like, yo, that's the first time he ever asked all of us to leave the room. He was like, yo, all y'all gotta leave. Even me, nobody could sit in there.
So who was he in there? Just the engineer?
Just the engineer. Yeah.
Why do you think he did that?
So I think he wanted to just focus. I think he wanted to just make sure it's right. I don't think he wanted no distractions. No, Big was a real worker like that. Like he was very professional too. Like don't, you know, he's very cool with just doing rhymes in front of any and everybody, but you know, he was a perfectionist too. Like, you know, he knew what he wanted to do, how he wanted to do it.
Do you think because it was a different flow too, that maybe it was a little...
Of course, yeah. He don't want no distractions. Like, imagine you writing your biggest rhyme that you might think will change your life and you sitting here watching it, joke in front of you. He ain't like distractions too. When he focus, he focus. He don't never do that. He was like, yo, everybody gotta leave the studio. For 30 minutes, it wasn't that long. 30 minutes, we come back in there, they had that whole verse laid out, like line for line, ad-lib, bars, delivery. Cause that was something that was just on his mind. He was just a perfectionist, like, I'm just like, nah, I'm gonna cover grounds, like.
I found it interesting too. What did you think, first of all, when you heard the verse?
I didn't think he did it. I was like, you did that? And he looked at me like, you wanna go home? Like, what you mean I do that? But he was just that, that's why he wanted to sit home. He was like, yo, he was just enjoying that moment of hanging out with Bone Thugs at that time, just to create energy with them and to learn them. Like, Big was just one of them guys that just come from the old school. He wanted to bond with people he do records with. He did records with Hove and people like that. Like, he embraced them. He would chill with them. We gonna go drink, we gonna go hang out, we gonna go vibe. He wanna fill you out. If you ever listen to Ready to Die, he had no features on there, because Big was like that. He only dealt with people he genuinely with as a musician. Like, he wasn't one of them that just gravitate to any and everybody. Like, but he was just a fan of music. Like, nobody know that about him. You may think he was just so hardcore and so scary and so aggressive, but nah, outside of that, one of his favorite rappers was Old Dirty Bastard. Like, he liked it that, like, animated and Busta Rhymes. He loved that. Like, you know, because Big was just a fan of music. Like, he was just one of them guys that was just like, yo, I enjoy the culture. I don't give a where you from. If you sound good, you sound great. That was just his energy. So to do something with Bone, that was like his challenge. That was like his breakout of sophomore. You know what? You think this was a flock. Now I'm gonna show you what I really do right now. And he didn't get a chance to really, like, you know, live that. You know, he didn't get a chance to do that 10 Crack Commandments and The World Is Filled, like he on record with Too Short. Like, he was showing you, like, yo, listen, I love everything. Like I with Bay music, I with LA music, and he was just like, you know, I don't think people really got a chance to understand who he really was and what he was trying to do. He was just too much ahead of his time. He didn't get a chance to really live it.
He says, he announces, I'm about to do this in one take. And he goes in there and he kind of does it and he stops and he like run it back. And the next take, he ran the whole verse in one take.
Being that skit, so that bothered him too. So he said he was gonna address quite a few people. And I come up to him, he got some slippers on. I'm like, yo, what's going on? Nah, you know, some dudes called my house, talk about they coming to get me. So I'm waiting for them.